So the city of Strasbourg had become one big, unexplainable dance party. People were dancing in houses. They were dancing in the streets. They were even dancing at church. Sometimes with shoes, and sometimes they were just completely barefoot. Honestly, super fun. I mean, what else were they doing? Nothing. Exactly. Just let them dance. God. The church was bothered by all this dancing, and they tried everything they could to make it all stop. Make it just go away. But they weren't having any damn luck. So, with that being said, they decided, hey, maybe we should lean into this a little bit, you know? And this next part is kind of strange, but honestly, it happened. Okay, great. So, the church threw a big street festival with professional musicians in order to try and fight the dancing plague. Okay, go on. The idea was that if they brought the music, then people would come out, do some dancing, right? The music doesn't stop, and voila, baby! These dancers are exhausted, right? And there you have it. We solved the dancing plague. They can't dance anymore if they're exhausted. Beat them to it. It's kind of like when you have a song stuck in your head and they say oh, the only treatment is just to listen to the song. Sure, great comparison. You get it. Pipers and drummers would play music, and they just told the people who were dancing to keep on dancing until you drop from exhaustion. They're like, keep going. You can do it. Yeah, you know. They even hired professional dancers to join in and keep the energy up and make sure that people kept going. Just get it out of your system, you know? Now, the funny thing is that they also were providing the dancers with food and drink so that they would have the energy to keep dancing, to just make sure that they really got it all out. And the reason I think that's kind of funny, LOL, is because they were fully in this horrible famine and the church was just hogging all this food. But now that there's a dancing plague and suddenly they're able to feed the people, this is what it took to get some food? Dancing? Okay. So others are seeing that these people who are stuck dancing are now getting free food and water. And they're like, you know what? I got the dancing plague too. And they're getting in on it. Everyone's literally dancing. Okay, you get it. Lots of dancing going on. So they could get free food and water. Which, hello, who would blame them? I don't, okay? But really, this dancing plague kept spreading and spreading, and by August, there were around 400 dancers. I'm not kidding, these people kept dancing all day, every day, unless they were sleeping. It was bizarre. Would this be considered the first Renaissance fair? Valid question. Like I mentioned earlier, this started in July, so they had been dancing for a whole month at this point, in the middle of summer, with no showers. Could you imagine how stinky everyone was? The stank must have been real. But it wasn't all just fun and dancing. Nay, of course not. This would actually start to become deadly. So those in charge wanted to keep the dancers dancing, and they hired what was described as, quote, strong men, end quote, like football player types or something. I guess they were using them to prop the dancers up, again, to keep them dancing. Yeah, this sounds completely made up, but I swear to you, I swear, historians said it happened. They were being forced to keep dancing, and again, it's really hilarious. What does it mean? Well, depending on who you ask, this method did work. Some people did indeed stop dancing. The only reason they stopped was because some were literally dying from exhaustion. They were dying from nonstop dancing. Many of them didn't want to keep going, but also they just couldn't stop. Some were so miserable while they danced, but seemed to have no control over their own bodies, leading to their deaths. Yes, there was food and water provided, but at this point there were so many dancers and they were unable to keep them all hydrated and full. Some of the people were begging to stop, but they couldn't. Their bodies would not allow it. Were they possessed? Was it some curse? Was it a psychotic break? What in the world was going on with them? Well, there were reports that said there were up to 15 dancers. We should just call them people at this point because they're people. 15 people dying per day. Yes. This story is from long ago that we don't even have an exact record, but it's believed to be around this number. I mean, the people in charge wanted the dancers to stop, so I guess They got what they wanted, 15 people stopping at a time. There was still no clear answers as to what the cause to this nonstop dancing was, and nobody knew how to solve it or get them to stop other than just let them keep going. One form of treatment was to open the church doors and make them dance in the chapel that they took Frau to. But their idea was to give the dancers red shoes. Oh yes, the red shoes. This would symbolize fire, which in turn would make God pity them and their burning feet. Yeah, I don't know, you guys. It sounds super random, but I'm sure at the time it definitely made sense. They're like, yeah, totally makes sense. Wear red shoes. To historians, another thought behind the red shoes was that they represented St. Vitus, like in his burning feet. Remember the saint that was burned at the stake? Yeah, well, red shoes may have represented his burning feet. So if the people of Strasbourg wanted to save their souls, it would represent St. Vitus, therefore God would protect them and they would stop dancing. Great. Sometimes you have to get creative when it comes to problem solving, and I applaud them for that. What's that, Joan? Yeah, I know. Obviously, this town has some kind of curse on it. And those in charge, they thought it would be best to try and purify the town. They're like, you know what? We need to try and bring the peace and order that we once had here. We need to bring that back. You know, peace and order where like the peasants aren't annoying us and dancing. Yeah. So they decided what they were going to do is ban sinners, drunks, sex workers, gamblers, and any criminals in order to bring purity back into the town. There's obviously like a dark cloud of sinners causing everyone to dance, and in order to fix this, everyone was banned except for those deemed good. Well, I don't think I'd want to stay. I'd want to dance. Anyways, around September of 1518, the dancing, it just stopped. It sure did. And we don't know why. We really don't. Maybe it was the red shoes after all. Shit, your guess is as good as mine, okay? Now, there's a lot of historical context as to why they might have been dancing in the first place, but not that much about why or how it even stopped. Some think that the red shoes really were the answer, which in my mind, naturally, I go right to like the Wizard of Oz. Like, were they making some kind of connection to red shoes in that movie that relates to this story? Or is that like a real thing? Red shoes? You know? I don't know, but like there's just a lot of unanswered questions here. Great. Glad we're on the same page. So, in the hundreds of years following this event, historians can't seem to agree on some of the specifics, but the one thing they can agree on is that this actually did indeed happen. There's dozens of newspapers, politicians, and even religious texts that make direct reference to the summer of 1518, when a bunch of people started dancing, and they didn't stop for a long time. Hey, Joan, I have a question for you. Have you ever heard of mass hysteria? Well, some believe that this was an early example of those kinds of events. People were miserable. God was everywhere, and he was telling them that they were all sinners, you know? Well, allegedly, of course. Nothing they were doing was making anything better, and all this dancing was probably some kind of escape for them. Or it was believed that the people of Strasbourg were suffering from some kind of disease that caused them to keep moving, which they just couldn't stop. Or maybe, just maybe, there was a curse on the town from the devil himself who made the people keep dancing as a form of odd punishment.